How's it going, everybody? I thought I'd try the live stream for the first time. Normally speaking, I don't care to do something like this because I don't know. I'm not necessarily a perfectionist, but I mess up pretty easily, and I guess I'm a little self-conscious about making mistakes, I guess. And of course, if you're live streaming, it's easy to get distracted and lose track of what you're saying or whatever. But anyways, I am a free thinker normally, but just wanted to kind of put some thoughts out there, and hopefully it could reach somebody out there. So anyways, I'm coming to you guys from Boise, Idaho. Sunday night. It's freaking beautiful outside, and just thought I'd sit out here and enjoy the weather. And of course, in these kind of states of being, I feel more connected to God, and I feel more, you know, like spiritually. I don't know what you would say. I just feel a sense of euphoria. But anyways, if anybody that is a follower of my channel hasn't figured out already, I'm kind of against the whole status quo thing, and I feel like there's a lot of deception out there, and it's hard to really contrast all the things that are out there, like the variables, like with science and religion and philosophy and just everything. Well, anyways, I want to be able to reach people on the level that they're coming from, because people all have their own fundamental perspective, and I just feel like everybody thinks that they're right, I guess you could say. Everybody thinks that that they have the truth, or they're operating from the truth. And for me, I've always thought that I had the answers to some degree. And the deeper I get into the information that I research, the more I realize that it's not that I'm not right. Stop, Jax. It's not that I'm not right. It's that maybe my truth is not full. I don't have the fullness of the truth. And the more I look into these kind of things, the more I realize, wait, there's a lot bigger picture here. And it makes me not want to draw conclusions about where I'm coming from. And so, like in my last video that I made, it was talking about everybody has a foundation that they're trying to build a structure from, and that foundation actually is what really determines how the structure can be built. So if you're building a house on sand, it's probably going to crumble in time because there's nothing firm to hold it. So that is kind of a philosophy, or a wisdom that Jesus spoke in Matthew 7. And everybody, you could say that foundation is a filter of bias. Or even a doctrine, or like a religious doctrine, you filter everything through a belief system, and basically I don't know, you believe, so basically your starting point of belief is, you know, kind of determines where your how you interpret all the data and information that you are subjected to. So anyways, so I'm a, for anybody that's listening to this at this point, I'm just trying my live stream for the first time. Honestly, I'm just trying to free think, and anything that comes to mind, I'm gonna say it, and we'll just figure it out as I go. But really, the purpose of my YouTube channel is to find patterns in reality, to basically, you know, for me, it's, I want to find proof of God, so to speak. You know, God is something that is defined as many different things. And my definition of God growing up was God was omniscient, omnipresent, perfect. He's everywhere. And it kind of ties in with the whole concept of energy is everything. God is like energy or something. But I don't know if God is energy, but it seems to me like there's patterns that point to this being an electric universe. Now, there's obviously intelligence behind all of this, because to me, all the patterns point to intelligence. Like DNA is very complex, and it, you know, everything in reality does not point toward complexity. Things don't trend toward complexity. Things trend toward decay and dysfunction. So DNA is one thing that really sticks out to me as being complex and like a proof of God. And you know, there's a lot of people that are jaded to the concept of God because of religion, but there's a lot of people and their philosophies out there that believe in some sort of God or higher power, which I think that, you know, there's a basis for, hey, stop it. My dog is being bad. But, you know, I was thinking, I watched that series Vikings, and it made me think of, like, you know, they're going to go to Valhalla when they die, and hey, and see their family members, which ties into near-death experiences, because they end up seeing whatever it is that they want to see, basically, or what the things that are important to them. Like the higher power is, as in electricity, is really fundamentally intelligent. And a lot of people will interpret that as we are higher, our higher minds, our higher consciousness is actually is connected to that power source, and our intelligence is basically feeding the intelligence. So like any experience that we have in this reality is basically going back to the source. And it's not very difficult for me to see that that's possible, that everything is connected to God because he created us. And I say he because it personifies God as a man. I don't necessarily need God to be a man, but the Bible depicts God as basically a man because it always refers to God as him or he. But to me, that's irrelevant. Woman is from man, so it's not like, honestly, I don't know if it's Revelation or something that says that people are not, or genderless. Like man and woman doesn't matter; it's irrelevant. So, but obviously here on Earth it matters because we're trying to reproduce, and but nowadays we're worried about calling somebody a man or a woman because some people are identify as something else. Or I freaking was filling out this application for a medical specialist, and they were asking questions about my personal situation, and they asked me my age, my weight, and my gender, and the gender actually was man, woman, or not specified, or something like that. I was thinking a medical document is trying to gather information from me about if I'm a man or a woman or something else. So I ended up, needless to say, I didn't go to that doctor because I felt like they're just trying to conform to society so that we could. Now, granted, I'm not. So if somebody that was a transgender or whatever tried to walk up to me and start talking to me, everything in my nature is going to embrace them and love them the best that I can. It is a little off-putting to me to have people that identify as a certain. See, this whole thing of identity. Sorry, my dogs are freaking out. Hey, stop it! Gender fluidity or gender fluidity or identity in general. I'm just going to talk about the word identity, because identity is really how we perceive ourselves, and we identify to or the thing that connects us to the reality around us, or the thing that we're willing to have other people accept us as. And you know, a lot of people might say, "Oh, I was born a certain way," and you know, this thought process is very interesting to me because, you know, again, I grew up in an abusive environment, and Lewis, how's it going? You're the first person to message me. I actually, this is the first time I've done a live stream, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you checking in here. So, but I might try to do this more often. But I'm talking about identity, basically. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. But this is so like going back to this thought of identity. People are so concerned about what others think of them, and it stems from this idea of a foundation that they. If you're just showing up now, I was talking about foundation, how we've kind of established our reality on a filter of bias or a filter of understanding. Everything is basically you know, interpreted through our lens. These are my glasses I can see more clearly through, but when I take them off, I don't have a lens or filter of understanding. But you know, I see more clearly, or it's more you know, it's easier to understand something when you're looking at it through a biased perspective. Now, sometimes the bias is wrong, sometimes the filter is wrong. The idea with like getting your eyes checked is you want to find the right lens for your eyes, and you're eventually gonna see more clearly through that lens. Now, and the same thing goes for if your foundation is built on something stable, it'll withstand scrutiny. And I often talk about the philosophical perspective of just, you know, so this concept of identity, like for me, um, I identify to love. I feel that the people that are passionate about the things that are around them, family, uh, they want to get good at things like play a musical instrument or whatever. I feel like it's great to have passion for things like that. Um, but oftentimes, someone's identity will stem from this desire to make people feel happy or accept them, and they can't find that strength within themselves, and to just to be who they are. And you know so going back to this, like the type of person uh, that I am, I learned in this course that I went through that the brain actually is so complex that basically anything you expose yourself to is really just you're going to learn. Your brain's like a sponge, you know, and as you expose yourself to certain things, you're going to basically start wiring your brain a certain way, and you're laying neural pathways, and those neural pathways are actually causing you to make little quick switches for every time you're so say for instance, like you're wiring up a house, and you wire into an outlet and you can plug into it. If you have a memory, you're like creating a switch in your mind. So that memory actually wires back to, or a memory could just be, how you function. Like talking is a form of memory because you have learned how to, put words together, and you've learned to put one foot in front of the other to walk or whatever. And and all of these things are creating neural pathways. And this idea is that people are molding themselves into something over time, and it could be influenced by outside influence as well, like family, friends, or bullies, or whatever the case may be. I don't know if this resonates with anybody, but you know, I knew this guy once that was very feminine. His dad left, and his mom was the only one that took care of him, and his mom was very feminine, and he kind of turned out to be very feminine, and but his mom was the only one that loved him really in his life. So he always when I first met him, he was somebody that was not considered homosexual, but or he didn't consider himself homosexual. But later, people would just tease him and like make fun of him, call him gay all the time because his effeminate personality, his flamboyant personality. And in time, he started thinking maybe I am gay because I'm flamboyant, and everybody, and I feel like I should like men because of the way that I am, or something like that. And it was that mindset that flipped that switch in his mind that basically laid that neural pathway. And then after he started entertaining those thoughts, it became a superhighway, a neural superhighway. So he created an identity in his own mind. And I feel like anybody creates an identity in their own mind. So if somebody is constantly depressed all the time, and they're very negative, and it's easy to just give in and be negative, or it's easy to kind of have that mindset. And if you allow yourself to get to that point where you're constantly negative, of course there's going to be chemical imbalance that happens in your body. So when they say that there's a chemical imbalance that causes like depression or bipolar disorder or whatever the case may be, I'm a firm believer that your attitude has a lot to do with that. So really, you know, I think that our bodies are like, if anyone hasn't seen the video that I made about our bodies are like, our people are like walking cell phone towers or something like that, or walking cell phones, because we transmit energy through whatever field this is, and we communicate with our consciousness. Our consciousness communicates through our neural pathways and whatnot, and controls us like an avatar. And it's interesting to me that you know, people are conscious. I mean, the fact that you can literally control yourself to the point where, say, you laid down all these neural pathways and you're super negative all your life, and then you have this epiphany where you're like, oh my gosh, I need to start looking at life more positive. And it's crazy how you can literally train yourself to be a new person. You can train yourself to be a new person. That is so inconsistent with evolution to me. It's inconsistent because I feel like if you're, you know, evolution looks for the path of least resistance. And if you're actually going against the nature that you've established, your mind is basically, so like if you develop these neural pathways in your mind, it creates a path of least resistance. So if you start changing your mind, you're actually going against the grain, which is extremely uncomfortable. If anybody wants to quit an addiction, it's not easy, obviously. But if your willpower is strong enough to fight against that addiction, then your consciousness is actually overtaking your physical body, and that to me is interesting. You know, I feel like this whole mind over matter thing is interesting. I think that maybe there is things in your mind that we can unlock and become, you know, operate from that God power, quote unquote. You know, the power of God, like Jesus freaking walks around and does all these miracles. But I don't know. See, again, there's a lot of these concepts that come from Jesus that I've never seen anything like it on this earth in my lifetime, unless you look at like David Blaine or something. You know, the magician. He's like shoving needles into his arms, and he threw like a card in between like two window panes, and it's like, really, how in the hell is that even possible? Well, if we live in this electrical universe, and you can manipulate, you know, the physical world, which I don't know if that's true or not, but it's extremely compelling to me that all the matter is connected, like just everything is connected like a conduit, electrical conduit. So anyways, I appreciate the thumbs up. Honestly, I'm trying to figure out how to get my videos to reach the world. And I feel like, you know, I need to take a little more time to do the videos that are really like documentary style. I mean, I had that documentary I made that's like up to 152,000 views or something, which is an awesome blessing for me to even be able to reach that many people. And it was about the brain, people's biased approach to reality, and how people draw their conclusions based on their own bias. And I contrasted, you know, like the belief in like an atheistic perspective versus the belief in God. I just think it's, for me, I think there's implications of if you don't know if there's a God or not, or if you don't think it matters, I think it does matter, because I don't think all this is here just to, scrape by in this life and hopefully have enough money to pay our bills and then freaking die. It just doesn't seem like a good enough existence to me. I feel like making a difference, emitting light into the world. I feel like loving people and embracing people and just cherishing the reality that we live in is really just what's going to get everybody through. And perhaps we are in this existence because we are trying to train or become more enlightened. I don't know. I mean, I think that it is an interesting thought process. And I think that, everybody should evolve in the sense of taking your conscious effort and trying to improve. And, I think that you can transform your mind by just changing your mind, just changing your perspective. Like, say, here's an example. I took on this new position at work where I went from literally sitting on my butt all day doing hand soldering, and looking through a microscope. Nobody bugged me. I was just doing my thing for 12 hours, and then I would go home. And but then I decided that I wanted to try a higher position and become a technician. And the learning curve was just so vast, and I was overwhelmed. And I'm like, oh crap, I don't want to do this anymore. I started feeling negative about work. And then I started dreading going to work. And it's amazing how that shift took place, because I was so sad about it. And that sadness just took me over. It consumed me. And it got to the point where I was like, man, I think maybe these people that are working around me don't like me or something like that. And it got to that point where, man, I just literally almost couldn't get out of bed. I was feeling sick. And it's amazing how I've literally just kept feeding that. I kept feeding it. And so in time, I started thinking about this mindset and rewiring the mind. And I started thinking, maybe, just maybe, if I change my mind and start thinking about it differently, I'm gonna be able to overcome this. And just like that, as soon as I started thinking like that, things started to change. It wasn't immediate, because literally I laid down neural pathways in my mind, and I ended up, I started basically, I put my foot down, and I was like, nope, I'm going to change the outlook on my reality, and things started changing. And so, I think that positive outlook on things is important. And but again, going back to the basis for why I do what I do, the reason I'm making videos, I feel like truth is not subjective, but it can be, depending on your filter of bias. Filter meaning your lens on how you look at reality. And I am on the pursuit of truth, and truth to me is understanding why we're here, and just knowing the purpose. And to be honest with you, the patterns that I've acquired in this pursuit is that love conquers all. Love is what gets everybody to the next level. And I don't mean to sound like such a hippie, but come on. I mean, people just feel good when they're loved, and it feels good to love. And I love nature. When I first came out here, I don't know if you can see this, but this is my backyard. I have a huge chicken coop, and I have a huge fence where I build my garden behind that. And there's my dogs, my grill. But anyways, I feel like there are certain things that I want out of this life, and but you know, it's easy to get into that cycle of stress and whatnot. And honestly, I'm tired of just getting into the vicious cycle. It's stupid. Sometimes I just want to freaking go live in a tent over by the river and, you know, be homeless. And but then I remember that I have a family. Some people, I guess, might frown on, you know, I don't want to lose my house, and I have a good thing going. And I think that if there's any takeaway here from my first live stream or whatever, is that embrace the relationships that you have in your life and continue to pursue truth, look for patterns of why we're here. I think that, you know, I don't always like to talk about religion because, to be honest with you, there's people that have interpretations from their filter of bias, and I feel like, you know, it can be subjective, but truth, like another pattern, is 1 + 1 = 2. There's nothing that really varies from that. So there is absolute truth out there. And I like to find that. That's kind of my goal. So for those of you who have not listened to my rants or whatever, I appreciate that you stopped in and you're willing to hear what I had to say. And, you know, I appreciate anybody that likes or subscribes and, you know, rings that little bell icon or whatever, so that they can hear my future. I'll start doing these live streams more often. I think it's kind of fun. And if anybody can hear me right now, say hi, because I think it would be pretty cool to, or where are you from, I guess? I'm in Boise, Idaho myself, but, you know, I want to know how far reaching this stuff is. And anyways, if you have any thoughts, you're always welcome to leave a message for me, and I'll get back with you. And you know, I love having this ability to talk to people. And if you have any thoughts on what you want to talk about, like aliens or flat Earth or whatever, I like talking about all this stuff. I don't care what it is. I feel like it's good to hash everything, you know, get down to the bottom or the roots of everything. Because in, you know, oh, there's one more. Hey, stop it. There's one more thing that I was thinking about. You know, the city Nazareth actually means Netzerut. Netzerut actually means like the root of David, and it's like prophetic that Jesus came from Nazareth. And Nazareth, so Jesus was the root of David. But I was listening to this documentary about early Christians, and Christians were actually, to be called a Christian was derogatory back in the early days. They were almost like derogatory, like, oh, it's those Christians, those people who follow Christ. And I think they called themselves the Nazarene or something like that. So it's kind of like those who were rooted from Jesus, basically. So, or like if you look at a tree, like when it's growing, if you ever saw a root, or maybe the tree was cut down, you see the root spring up a new tree. That actually is a Netzerith. So basically, you know, this world that we live in is a hard place to be. in some places, and in other places it's you know, like here in Boise, Idaho, I feel like I'm blessed and I'm lucky to be here because it's pretty well, it's pretty, and we got mountains right like 40-50 miles from here, and I can go camping, and there's not a crap ton of people here, like maybe a quarter million, 500,000 people, but for those who live in like LA or New York City or something, sorry, if you ever want to come to Idaho, this would be a place to get away, I guess. But anyways, I might just have to cut this short, but if you like me streaming, just give me a thumbs up and I'll keep it going. I appreciate your guys' time, and I hope that you're blessed. Alrighty.